fucking went out, took a bunch of drugs, and I barely slept like 2 hours, and then I had to spend the day with my dad. And I remember just, just thinking, Jesse, man, what the fuck are you doing? I really didn't fucking like myself. And here is the interesting thing that I learned about stopping your self-sabotage. You have to stop trying to stop your self-sabotage. That's it. I was an absolute fucking degenerate, and I tried every single thing in the book to get rid of my self-sabotaging habits, whether it was taking drugs in the weekend, promiscuity, porn, smoking, drinking, lying, like all the bad stuff. And man, you have no idea how many times I told myself I needed to lock in. I just needed to get some momentum going and do this and do that. But I constantly found myself back into the same old pattern. Even if I were to lock in for 2 months, for example, I would completely fuck up again after 3 months and go on total benders. For some reason, the bad habits never really disappeared. The bad habits never really seemed to disappear, and it's because I looked at removing my bad habits from a completely wrong perspective, which is what I learned later on. Every single day, I remember in my degenerate era, right, when I knew that I was, I needed to stop doing certain things. I knew it wasn't good for me. And I was so focused on breaking those patterns. Every single day was a wall. And somewhere deep down, I already knew that even though I said I was going to stop, fucking hell. And every time that I told myself that I was going to stop, deep down, a part of me kind of already knew that it was going to happen again. And that it was just a matter of time. And that I was just focused on how long can I hold it out this time. And perhaps, for some magical reason, now it will disappear if I just try to avoid it for a longer period of time. But I always ended up falling back into the same old patterns. And the only thing that did was it made me feel fucking miserable. It made me feel like I couldn't change, that this was just it, that I was just fucking broken or something. And it created a very negative self-image because obviously, I really thought that I couldn't change. It made me feel depressed. It made me feel like I was a fuck up. And that is not a good way to walk around when you feel like that. And even though I was making a lot of money, I felt miserable at that time because the money, that didn't solve that problem that I had because I knew who I was behind the scenes and no amount of money could fix that. And it was terrible, but there is light at the end of the tunnel because right now, those self-sabotaging habits that I used to struggle with so much that kept me in their grip for such a long time, they have gone. And the reason why they've gone is because I got to learn a completely different way of how to break old habits and patterns and self-sabotage. And it completely changes the way that you look at things because most people, just like I, are attacking their self-sabotage or their bad behaviors completely the wrong way. And in this video, I want to show you exactly what it is that allowed me to just quit all of my self-sabotaging habits and instead become the best version of myself, build the best physique, rebuild my business, because I hit rock bottom, guys. Like I was down bad, right? I lost all my money, my car, my penthouse, my Porsche, everything, my relationships, all my money, and I was forced to change. And in that change in that period where I was forced to change, I realized what I'd been doing wrong. And I want to give you those lessons in this video so that you can actually implement them in your own life right now and skip all of the fucking bullshit that I had to go through so that you can actually start living as the person that deep down you really are. Now, I assume that just like me, you've already tried to tell yourself to just lock in, and you've tried to implement some new routines and new habits, and you've been there trying to fucking avoid not watching porn or not smoking a cigarette or not going out or not taking drugs but the point is that you find yourself at the same spot every time because you know how good it feels. And here is the interesting thing that I learned about stopping your self-sabotage. You have to stop trying to stop your self-sabotage. That's it. And I'll explain with neuroscience and actual psychology how this works and why so many people stay stuck. This is how I stayed stuck. I stayed stuck for a year in this shit, for 2 years almost. The more that you try to focus on not doing something, the harder it becomes to resist it. And the more alive it actually becomes and the more of a battle it becomes to resist it. And you're not going to win that battle. You might win it one day, you might win it 2 days, you might even win it 3 days. Hell, you might even win it for a couple of weeks. But you cannot keep fighting every single day. This is why I don't like the phrase, it's you versus you, or kill the old self. Because it is not about killing an old version of you. If you have to wake up every single day and it's a fucking war, then there is no joy to that. There's no joy to that life. And that's not how you want to live. And you're gonna lose that battle someday. And then what are you gonna tell yourself? You fucking loser, this and that. And that's not what we want. When I tried to quit my self-sabotage, there was one really big mistake that I made. And there was something that I forgot to do. And with the clients that I help now, for example, I see it with so many people. We are very good in understanding what we want to run away from. We are very good in understanding what we do not want. This is why everyone fucking complains. Everyone understands and everyone knows that this is not the life that they want, or this is not right, or this is not good. So we're really, really good at understanding what we do not want in our lives. Yet we keep getting that very same thing. And this is because the more that you focus on one thing, the more that you're going to get it. If you're going to focus on not wanting a certain life, then that is exactly what you're going to get, the not wanting that specific life or not having that desire for a specific thing. But if we change that perspective, and this is the big realization, it's actually really fucking simple, but almost no one does this. If you can focus on what you really want instead of what you're trying to avoid, then it becomes so much easier to stop the thing that is sabotaging you without actually focusing on it. When I was trying to get rid of all of these things, I was constantly focused on avoiding this. And I remember just sitting at home, and I lived in Marbella, and there was a lot of parties, and there's girls, and there's booze, and I knew how fucking fun it was when I went out with my friends, and it became like a fucking insane party, and it was drugs and women and all this stuff, I remember how good that felt, how much fun that was as well in the moment. But I also remember how much regret and shame and guilt I felt on that Saturday or Sunday morning, and even carried with me on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday morning. I always made promises from that regret, from that shame, from that guilt. That is a very tough place to be, because you are not going to keep a promise if it's made out of guilt, shame, and regret. You cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created that very problem. So instead of trying to focus on not doing a thing, which only is going to make it more attractive, which only is going to build up the resistance, and it's just going to be a matter of time before you fail, you need to focus on, well, what is the counter action to that? What is the opposite of that? Let's not focus on what I don't want, but let's focus on what I do want. What am I doing it for? Where am I going? This is much easier, because this allows you to actually step into the new version of you, step into these new habits, step into this new life that you want to create. Like, again, with everything, if you keep thinking, oh, I cannot text my ex, I cannot check her stories, or I must not watch porn right now, or I must not smoke a cigarette, and you keep thinking this the whole time, man, it's gonna be tough. You're gonna lose that battle. You're gonna lose that fucking fight. I can tell you, I can promise you, because I've been there, my friend. I've had that experience. And then the downfall is only gonna be harder and harder. The retaliation is gonna be more, because there's so much resistance that's built up. You expand that behavior massively, but because of the resistance that you create towards it. See, the brain does not take not very well. The brain cannot really comprehend the negative very well. And the moment that you start thinking of not doing a thing, you access the same neural networks that are tied to that specific activity. So you only create the urge to do it more and more and more by not thinking about it. Make sense? This is why suppression feels so exhausting, because it literally is, because you're literally fighting urges and feelings in your body that want that very specific thing. So the moment that you keep spending time and energy on not doing a thing, you basically constantly revisit that same neural network, and you strengthen that same neural network that is responsible for those very actions, that are tied for those to those specific actions. But what happens when you focus on another path and you want to go into this way, then that route becomes easier and easier to follow. Bro, what the fuck is up with these doors, bro? I thought the windows were gonna fucking fall out. But this is the exact reason why you constantly fall back into old patterns. Why you feel like you are stuck, because you literally are, because you're recreating the same fucking environment inside your mind. And this is why, again, it feels like a fucking wall. And the way that we change this is by focusing on what we want. What is the opposite action? Where do we want to go? This is much more powerful. The other important thing that you need to understand is that most of your self-sabotaging habits, whether it's watching porn, smoking, drugs, alcohol, going out on the weekends, whatever it is, right? It usually also serves a need. So it's usually for emotional regulation, to escape, relief, belonging, some sort of stimulation, right? If you then take that away and you don't create something else to basically fulfill that need that you have, then it's going to come back because your brain recognizes smoking or this or that gives me this, right? And if that's the only viable option, then your brain will take you there. That's why quitting cold turkey for a lot of people just simply doesn't work, because there is no counteraction. There is no other thing that they implement in order to actually deal with their needs, basically. So if you only attack the strategy, if you only attack the symptom, the need remains underneath all of that, and that will still come back. The way that you speak about these things is very important as well, because every single time that I told myself, like, I don't want to go out and do drugs and this and that, like, it became a battle against that urge, right? But if we change the language, instead of like saying, I do not want this, because we're already familiar with the fact that the brain doesn't really do I don't want this very well, it only makes the not wanting more of a want. But instead we focus on, well, I want to feel healthy. I want to build meaningful relationships. I want to be able to trust myself. If we tell ourselves these things, then those are the things that become more easily accessible. And we can envision and imagine ourselves being that person. And then we shift our attention and our focus more to those things instead. And I think that this is the most important part of the video, because this is where most people just don't know themselves. They don't know what they want. They've never really sat down, taken a piece of paper and taken the time to figure out, well, what do I really want? Who do I really want to be? And not the things that you see on social media. Not the things like, there is a concept of you wanting the things because other people want them. Like half of the stuff, you wouldn't want half of the stuff if you didn't see other people have them on social media. And half of the stuff that people have, they wouldn't buy if it wasn't for social media. So take that out of the equation and really ask yourself, well, who do you really want to be? What do you really want out of life? Who are you really? Like, most people have never really sat down and asked themselves those questions. If the option is not available to understand what life you're going to step into, then you're always going to repeat the same fucking thing, because identity is looking for patterns, it's looking for what is familiar. So you're going to stay stuck in the familiar, and if you're not able to create a new familiar because you don't know where you're going, then that familiar is going to stay stuck. Then you're going to keep self-sabotaging, then you're going to keep repeating the same habits. Seneca said very beautiful, I think it was Seneca, he said, no wind is favorable to the sailor that does not know where he is going. If we do not understand who we want to become, who we are, where we are going, then we're always going to stay stuck in who we currently are. And this is extremely simple, but really, don't write down, oh, I want to make $1 million or this or that. Write down who you want to be in character, what you value, what is important to you, what relationships that you want to build, how you want to look at yourself, how you want to feel when you wake up, what kind of internal dialogue that you want to have, what kind of standards that you want to hold, what kind of man that you are going to be in certain situations, when the pressure gets high, when life gets tough, when the tough gets going. Who are you going to be in those very specific moments? Are you going to be the person that fucking folds into comfort, into what is familiar, into the same old fucking self-sabotaging habits? Or are you going to be the guy that fucking stands his ground, that stands on his strengths, that understands his weaknesses, but chooses a higher path? Well, that higher path was never there because you don't know it. You can't go where you can't see. In order to go and be this person and stop these self-sabotaging things, we need to understand where we're going, and we need to figure this out. And with most of my clients, when I ask this question, and again, these are successful entrepreneurs, right? These are 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs. These are guys that are off well, that make a lot of money. And when I ask them this question, because it's not about the money for them anymore, right? It's about who they are. Silence. Because everything that they've ever chased was only something that they thought they needed. I want to make more money. I want to get a nice car. I want to be able to travel. But all of these things are external factors. None of these things focus on who you are as an individual, as a man, as a person. And the moment that you start focusing on those things, that's when life really gets interesting. Because you can build your external world, but if you don't change who you are, then you're just going to be the same exact guy in a different environment. So I remember a time, for example, when my dad flew over to Marbella, and the night before I had, I told myself, I can't go out, I can't do this shit, I can't, take drugs and be fucking high, and I can't show up for my dad, he flew over to Marbella, and I can't show up as as this guy, right? And I did. Fucking went out, I took a bunch of drugs, and I barely slept. I slept like 2 hours, and then I had to spend the day with my dad. And I remember just thinking, Jesse, man, what the fuck are you doing? Man, I really didn't fucking like myself. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the way that I see myself now, and the way that I talk to myself, and the way that I have built my new identity and built this new version of myself was not by focusing on what I shouldn't do and what I, trying to kill the old version of myself, but by telling myself things like, well, I want to be present for my family. Like, I want to be the best Jesse there is for the people that I love. And I want them to be able to enjoy me, and I want me to be able to enjoy them, and I want to spend intentional time together. And that gives me so much more power and so much more motivation and so much more purpose and discipline than telling myself, oh, I should stop taking drugs, and I don't want to drink alcohol, and I don't want to I shouldn't party tonight, I must not. And that direction, right, that is still something I live by. Like, right now I'm developing myself to the best of my abilities. Why? Because I want to be there for others. I want to be there for my family. I want to show them what is possible. I want to show up as the best Jesse that I can, so that because that's all that they want as well, right? That's the people that you love, right, that love you. Sure, they want to see you successful, make a lot of money, but more importantly, they just want to be able to, when you are with them, they want to be able to be with you, with the real you, be with the present you, with the healthy you. That's what they want to see. They want to see you happy, healthy, and as the most authentic version of you. The money is nice, but that's a secondary thing. The first thing is you. So for me, that became a really big driver. And that became so much more powerful than telling myself, I don't need to do this. So this is a really good example of how this shaped me and how I was able to manage to basically, because of that, just drive myself forward and attach new habits to that very specific desire, to that very specific vision that I had of how I would show up, when I was with my dad, or when I was with my family, or when I was with my friends, or how I would show up, for example, for my future wife. And those things are so important to understand and to know. And that's the question that most entrepreneurs, most people don't really ask themselves. Like, who do you want to, we always focus on the materialism, but we don't really ask ourselves, who do you want to be without all of that? And that's the real thing. That's the thing that because you should be happy with or without a lot of money. Like, a lot of money is very nice to have, but most people just don't want money worries. But besides that, there's not a lot of things that money can offer that will make you feel good about yourself. So the goal is to give yourself choices, to give yourself very visible choices that are supported by a very, very high purpose. So instead of saying, I don't want to drink, or I don't want to do this, I don't want to smoke, well, I want to be a healthy person. Like, if you're a young guy right now and you have a very destructive lifestyle with drugs and this and that and whatnot, like, at a certain point you would want a family, right? You would want kids. Maybe you want to, if you're single, you want a wife. Like, work towards that. You don't want to be having cardiovascular issues when you're fucking 35 or 36 years old because of the fact that you've been such a degenerate for 10, 15, or 20 years, right? So make it bigger than just yourself, and tap into that, step into that version of you, because that is something more than just a sporadic burst of motivation. That is meaning, and meaning will outlast motivation. Meaning will outlast fear as well. Like, we often move because of fear. We get a health scare and then we're like, damn, I shouldn't do this. Like, that's what I had, for example, sometimes when I would be 3-day benders and I would, get like this fucking panic attack, my heart racing. And I told myself, damn, man, I can't have this. I need to stop, But then 2 weeks later, I was fine again. I was like, fuck it, let's go. So those moments of fear, they push us forward, but they never sustain. And we don't want to move from a fearful situation constantly. We want to move from a place of purpose and of meaning, because again, that will sustain. This is the way. This is how you change. You need to understand and become aware of the things that you're struggling with, become aware of your self-sabotage, become aware of your bad habits, your patterns, yes. But by focusing on not doing those things, they only become more. We need to understand where we are going. and you need to be. And I think the reason why this is so hard for a lot of people is because it makes them realize how far they have drifted of who they really are. And sitting down and remembering who we are might hurt us too much, or it might require too much from us to change. So it becomes easier to not think about those things and avoid that psychological hurt and just stay familiar with what we are. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the way. That speaking that truth, understanding where you're going is probably one of the most important things that you can ever do. And I want you to do that because it's changed my life. It has completely shifted the way that I see things, my perspective, the way that I show up for myself and for others. And I want that for you. So if there's any questions about this, guys, always, like, my comments are open. You can text me on Instagram. I reply to all the messages myself. This is what I do. I've made some pretty big changes myself. And there are tools that you can use. There are strategies that you can implement. You know, I had to figure all of this stuff out mostly by myself and through a lot of trial and error. And it was incredibly hard. And I've spent, you know, the good part of 6-7 months trying to figure all of this stuff out and going through it. But you don't have to. There is ways where you can tap into all of those things, where you can engineer the truth in your own life right now. So if you want to know more about that, then obviously just follow this channel, follow me on Instagram, ask me any question that you want, guys. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to serve. That's my purpose. And that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.